Hello, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Harry Osiris, and this is my YouTube channel grecochess. And while we are waiting for more games to conclude in the online grecochess tournament to present them, today we have something different. The chess.com puzzles. Let me share my screen with you. And today we are going to attempt the puzzle rush. What is that? Chess.com is going to throw me successive puzzles starting from the easiest and going to more and more difficult. And I will continue until I have 3 puzzles wrong. There are 3 modes that you can play, the 3 minutes, the 5 minutes, or the survival. If you play the 3 minutes, once the 3 minutes are over, that's it. Unless you have 3 errors before that, then you stop earlier. It's similar with the 5 minutes. At most, you can play for 5 minutes, but you have 3 puzzles wrong and it's over. But survival, you can go on forever and ever until 3 puzzles are wrong. And the first few ones, just to tell you in advance, are quite simple. But we'll continue and let's see what we can do. Hit the play button and the first puzzle would appear on the screen. Here is a puzzle, and let's see if there is a rating. I don't see the puzzle rating any longer, but I have the black pieces, and it's an easy mate in one based on the back rank problem. Here we are, and it's a mate. You see that the rating of the puzzle was 174. These numbers will become larger as we go on. Puzzle number 2. This is, I think it's made in 2 moves. While I'm doing them, you too can also pause your video and try to do them with me. You see the black king has nowhere to go. Check with the pawn of g4, the black takes it, and check with the pawn again, and it's made. The rating of this was 201. Puzzle number 3. This is a typical case of king and rook versus king. White still has a rook and 3 pawns, but this can go nowhere. So checkmate again in one move. Now this is going to be a case of rook and knight combination. You see that the black king has nowhere to go because there's a pawn in front of it and the knight covers the other 2 squares, so no we need is to check. But if we check with the rook, we lose it, and we check second time, and it's made. And now puzzle number 5. We already did 4 of them successfully. You see here the diagonal from h5 to e8. We're going to check with the queen, and the king has nowhere to go. Puzzle number 6, another back rank issue. The question is how to check the white king. Queen will go to h8. White queen will postpone it, and it's made. Yes, the rook could also postpone one more move, but that's it. Next puzzle now. It seems there is no easy mate. We already have completed 6, and this is going to be the 7th. Let's think how to proceed. I think there is no mate here, but we can win the white knight. How? This is my guess. I cannot be 100% sure that it isn't. Even if we win the knight, I cannot be 100% sure that there is nothing better than that. But I think that if the knight goes to f1 check, and we exchange with the rooks, queen will go here check, king goes to h2, and then queen from f4, and the next move will win the knight. And then after that, white will have 7 pawns, white has 3, and white is 4 pawns ahead, with one of them especially this c4 near promotion. Let's see if this is the answer. Yes? Yes? Yes, that's it. Next move, we would win the knight. Next move here, this is a mate in 1. You see the f7 square with the pawn is very sensitive for the black king. If we check here, it should be mate. Yes. Puzzle number 9, that's again mate in 1. It has to do with the square b2. You see the queen attacks it, the bishop supports it, and there is no white defense. So this should be mate. And number 10, queen will check from f7, and the black king d6 and d8 where it might have gone. However, for black, these are covered by its own queen and pawn. And we completed the first 10 puzzles. The toughest one was 621, 10 out of 10. Let's continue now. Let's see what more can we do. Once again, same theme. Queen and bishop battery. Here's the queen, here's the bishop, and queen will go to c5 and should be made. Yes. 11 out of 11. Let's continue with the 12 now. Here we have a back rank issue, but if the rook cannot go directly to e1 because the king will take it. But what can we do? First, bishop goes here to a6, bishop takes bishop, bishop takes pawn, and finally rook goes to e1 and it's made. Puzzle number 13, another back rank issue, but we have to be careful. Queen cannot go to f1 because rook will take it. Instead, queen goes to f2 check, king to h1, queen to f1 check, rook stops it, and then rook to f1 and it's back rank mate. Puzzle number 14, what do we do here? There's no mate in 1. However, there is mate in 2 or 3 moves. Queen will go to f6 check. King has only one square to go, g8. Now knight will check, and I think it's a mate. Next puzzle. The white king is constrained. It can go nowhere. Of course, it's safe for now, but it cannot move anywhere. So how are we going to take advantage of that? Bishop will go to c3 check, rook goes to d2 covers, and then queen goes to d2, and it's mate. Completed 15 puzzles, 15 out of 15, the highest one being 862. Let's continue now. What can we do? Can we check the king? Because most of the puzzles, if not all of them, have started with a check. If queen goes to g5, that's the safest check we can do. Where king can go? Of course, if pawn goes to the 4 and stops it, we'll take the pawn. King can go to d1, e1, d3, e2. Is there any follow-up? Well, at least to e1, knight takes the pawn on c2 and wins the rook, but anywhere else? I don't see anything else. Checks you can have the knight going to f3 or b3, but both of them going to be taken. What if rook goes to c8? Can we win the queen? The queen has a few squares to go. What if the pawn goes to b5? Again, the queen has squares to go. That doesn't seem to be easy. But the queen can do something else. After it checks on g5, instead of looking for follow-up check, can it go to g2, win the pawn and then the rook? So let's try the queen goes to g5. Yes. Now, what is the next one? Be careful, the queen is attacked by the bishop. So we must do something against this threat. I don't see any other check, but queen can go to g2 and win the rook on h1. Let's see if this is okay or if we miss something else. Yep, we won the rook, and number 16 puzzle, it was successful. The next one, the 17th. You see that the black king can only go to g4. What if we check with the bishop from e2? I don't think the black king has anywhere to go because the h6 is covered by the bishop on g5, g6 by the knight on f8. Let's see if this is the answer. Yes. Puzzle number 18 now. Black has more material, but white has dangerous attack. And definitely white does not want to change queens, because then the attack is over. But what if the rook, the white rook checked went from e4 to h4? Where can the black king go? It can go to g8, and then I Don't see the and then. There's a check. Queen can take the bishop and then let's see. Rook goes to h4. Yes. Now, what if white king wins the bishop? Materially, now white will be just one pawn ahead, but I doubt that this is the answer. But I think there's a follow-up. If white queen takes the bishop and the black king blocks, then rook goes to h8, and after black takes the rook, white wins the black queen. But what if the queen goes here? We'll see later. I think the rook can go to f4. Check and it's over. Don't even give you the possibilities. Now, if the white queen goes to h8, I think it's mate. Yes. Finish 19, and now it's time for puzzle number 20. I think this has to do with material. Once we exchange rooks, the black queen will win the white bishop on e3. Yes, so we finished 20 puzzles, 20 out of 20, the highest one being 1141. After the first 17 puzzles that were below 1,000, now we are dealing with puzzles above 1,000. And this is mate in one. Once the white rook goes to d8, that's it, it's mate. Once again, of course, I would like to ask our viewers if they're interested to play with us. Freeze the video when you see the puzzle and try to solve it on your own. Here we have, if the white queen checks from b6, there's only one answer for black. Rook goes to c7, but then we win the rook. Yes. Here, we finished the first 22 puzzles. Puzzle 23. If we exchange rooks, what's happening? Then I think is the pawn in the square. What do I mean by the square? In case you have pawn versus king, a pawn promotes if the enemy king is not in the square made by this pawn. I'm going to show to you before I move anything. Let's assume that white rook on g7 takes, g8 takes the black on g7, and king takes back. Then the white pawn goes to a4. And this is going to form a square. You see here, is a black king on time? It seems black king is on time. So a4, f7, a5, e7, a6, d7, a7, c7. No, I don't think it's on time. So let's do it. I think this is the answer. Yes, and now pawn goes to a4. That's it. The black king was outside the fictitious square. We finished 23 puzzles. Puzzle number 24. You see that the black king basically has nowhere to go. The white king, I'm sorry, has nowhere to go. The black queen is very near, but the queen alone cannot checkmate. But perhaps it could checkmate if it had another piece. So if we move the knight to g4, there is a threat of mate on h2. How can black deal? They need to protect one way or the other the h2 square, and I don't see that this is possible. Let's see if this is the answer. Queen goes to h2 check, king escapes to f1, but now this is a checkmate, f2. Next puzzle now. You see the pin that of course, one might think that the white queen on e3 can easily grab the black queen on f2, which is undefended, but there's a problem that the white queen on e3 is pinned by the bishop on h6. And of course, the white queen cannot take the black queen. If I try, the system does not even allow me. In a real over-the-board situation, perhaps one player may try it, and it's up to the opponent if they notice it or not. But what would happen if the white queen took the black bishop on h6, which is unprotected? Then black would win the white rook on g1. So white would win, would lose at least exchange. It's a very dangerous check because the king doesn't have too many squares to go, and there is a knight on d4 that could strengthen the attack. Instead, we'll do something else. We'll use the white bishop on g4 to take the pawn on g6 and then a second check. The bishop cannot cover on j7 because then the pin is lost and black loses their queen. If they go to the h file, they lose the bishop. Let's see if this is the answer. Yes, that's it. They don't have the follow-ups. This is a continuation. So we got 25 correct until now, the toughest one being 1355. Puzzle number 26. And they'll start becoming tougher and tougher. The black king is not in a nice position. If they wanted to move, they can only go to the e8 square. But they're not attacked for now. Which means if black just will move, of course, if black was to move, they would take the rook on c1 and they would be almost winning. But we're not going to let them do it. How will we deal with the situation? Many times you're just one move from being mated, but fortunately it's your turn to play. You really have to think seriously what to do, and either you play defensively, meaning cover this thing, for example, castling would be nice. The one rook protects the other, but then there's checkmate on h2. Or even better, actively checking the opponent. Let's see if a check will save us. Queen from a6 will go to b5. Yes, black king has nowhere to go. In this case, black is near mating white once again. If black queen goes to b2, there's a battery, but can white stop it? Of course, white can exchange queens. This stops the mate, but then black is left with one extra bishop. I think they want something better than that. What would happen if the white queen would go to d8? Bishop would take it, and then the white rook takes it. But I don't think she has. What would happen if white queen went to a8? Then bishop cannot take. And black, if they put a bishop on d8, the rook takes it. If they put a queen on e8, then white. I'm not sure what would happen. One rook. White rook would go to e8, but then the bishop would take it. I don't see anything better. Chase queens is one case where at least you avoid the worst and hopefully you can do better in the remaining of the game, where black has an extra bishop, but white has 3 extra pawns. So white has a fighting chance if they can stop the mate now. But if they want to win it now, like in this puzzle, and that's the difference between puzzles and real game. In puzzles, there's always an answer. And you can do sometimes even crazy moves, knowing that with non-crazy moves, if you don't win immediately, the puzzle is not solved. But in real game, many times you have to play a boring move just to stay alive. But here we'll try the queen to a8, see if this is the answer. Nope, it's not. We got it wrong. Now white is should win, but there's a problem. Black is checking. If white was going to play, they could put the queen on g7 and finish it. Ideally, you want to put the black king somewhere that it cannot be checked, but the white king doesn't have too many squares to go. The squares to go are e4 and d3. If they go to e4, black queen goes to c2. If they go to d3, the black knight could check, but it will be lost. So we'll put the king to d3 and see if this is the answer. And of course, we cannot take the black knight. Yes, that was the answer. What can we do now? White has a very dangerous attack, but it's why a black turns to move. Okay, this one needs some imagination to do it. You need some experience to be able to see these cases. And in problems, it is not so difficult to see them if you practice enough. In real game, what's happening is most of the similar cases, the answer does not work. So one needs to be careful to see if the answer will work or not. Here, what is the idea? If the rook takes on h3 check, king has to take the rook. Then queen goes to h1, and king can only go to g4, and then queen to h5 should be made. Let's see if this is the answer. Yes and yes. The combination of the queen with the pawn supporting the queen diagonally. Let's see what can we do now. Of course, white is attacking the black king. You see bishop, queen, and pawn very near. The problem is that the queen cannot check the black king without it getting caught. Whether it goes to e7, f6, or g5, it will be taken either by the black knight on d5 or by the black rook on g8. But you can also check with the bishop. And black can stop it, but I don't think forever. Yes, I can only stop it temporarily. Let's see what's happening here. Well, if white could play two moves in a row, queen goes to h6 and then queen to h8 mate, but white cannot do it. Instead, white has to do another trick to win this extra move. Rook goes to h8. If the king takes the rook, queen to h6, king to g8, and queen to h8 mate. But if the black king, instead of taking the rook, takes the pawn, queen to h6 mate. Let's see if this is the answer. Yep. And yes, a king took the pawn instead of the rook, and this is mate. So we finished the first 31 puzzles. We have 30 out of 31 correct. The toughest one being 1692. This is the 32nd from the beginning. 30 means that we have 30 successful until now. I don't count the one that failed. And here, the power of the pin. The pawn on f2 is pinned by the bishop on c5. So that is why we'll check with the rook on g3. And the king has to go to the h file, and then the queen will come. Let's see if this is the answer. Yep. Yep. Next one. White checks the black king. The black king has, how can he deal with it? Either the king moves to h8, h7, or f8. In these cases, they're going to be behind. Or otherwise, the black takes the white bishop. There are two ways to do it. Either with the king itself. The problem is that then the rook will come to f1, or with the bishop on g6. My bet would be bishop takes from g6 takes on f7. In a real game, that's what I would do. In a puzzle, no, there's an answer. No, he cannot do it. Because in addition to the check, we have the white king attacks the black king. If the bishop takes the bishop, then the white king takes the black queen. That is why even if we have to worry about the rook on f1, we have no other solution. The king takes a bishop. Yeah, and yes, and the rook goes ahead, but what else can we do? Otherwise, we lose a queen. Now we have to think again where to send the king. If we block it, block the queen, we lose the queen. If we block it with the bishop, we lose the bishop, and rook checks again, and white's position is even stronger. So what we need to do is move the king, but where? f6, forget it, the bishop. e6, forget it, the queen. e7, forget the bishop. And we only have e8 and g8. Which out of the two? The good thing by moving into g8 is that we have the rook on a8, the black rook, that still plays role in the defense. But if the king goes to e8, then the rook on a8 is blocked. So that's why, based on strategical theme, it would be better to g8. But let's think more concretely. Is there any follow-up check? If we go to e8, there would be the possibility of the rook on e1, but the rook is not protected, because if it was protected, then a queen would be pinned. But there's another problem. If the king goes to e8, white will exchange queens, and then a rook goes to e1, and the bishop is pinned, and we lose the bishop. So that's why king goes to g8. And you see, queens are exchanged, there is no pin. Next puzzle. There is no check from black, but there is a threat of mate in one. If black was to play again, queen goes to f2, it's mate. That's why white needs to be fast. And you see the black king cannot go to the 7th rank, it's stuck in the 8th, and also cannot even go to d8. So I believe if the bishop goes to g6, it's mate. Yes. Continue once again. You see the weak square h7, but it's protected by the knight on f6, not on the king. So if a bishop takes a knight and bishop takes back, then queen goes, can either go f5 or h5 and threaten mate, but it can be defended by the pawn on g6. But if queen goes to f5, then the bishop is lost. Let's see if this is the answer. Queen to f5. Yes, the mate, black stops the mate but loses the bishop. Next one now. You see, white has a queen and a knight attacking the black king. Can the two alone do the job? Let's see. How many ways can we check? We can go either to h6 or h8, but h8, the bishop will take it. Or we may have knight on h7. So it is between queen on h6 or knight on h7. I cannot see anything else. Ah, there is, yes. Queen takes on f7, and it's mate in one. Yes. We finished the first 35 puzzles. We have one wrong, 35 correct. 1907 is the highest. And here we are, the white king can only take the rook on f7. White has a very strong attack, can take the pawn on h7, but does not threat mate in one and does not threat, and even if rook takes a7, it's very dangerous, but not a check. So how will black take advantage of the very limited time they have? My feeling is rook goes to c8, blocks a king, and then rook to c3, and it's mate. But what if queen takes on e5? Can win the queen for two rooks, perhaps? Or queen can check from d8, let's see. Yep. Now what do we do? We only have one answer. Take the queen. We only have one answer again. It's king to g7. Again, only one answer. And even they will lose a queen, but will mate next move with the rooks. The last puzzle was 1999, so all of the puzzles now will be above 2000. This is, of course, in the chess.com rating system, has nothing to do with the ELO scale. What can we do now? Black has queen and bishop very near a king, the white king. The only check I see is with pawn on g6. If he checks on f7, only rook can take it. Then a follow-up check. Let's see, I don't see any check other than the pawn taking f7. And if we don't check, black will send the queen to h4, and we're in big danger. Let's see if that is the answer. Nope, it is wrong. So this is the second wrong puzzle we have. One more, and we are out of the game. Here we have a chance to, you see that the white rook is only protected on e1, is only protected by the queen on f2. But if we could exchange queens, we win the rook. So queen goes to g3 check, pawn goes to g3 check, we lose the pawn, but we win the rook. Here we have a case where white seems to be a couple of pawns ahead, but black is in attack, and the pawns that black is missing are very good because this exposes a white king. I think now we need to sacrifice one rook to mate with the queen and the other rook. Yep. Yep. And mate in 3 moves. Next puzzle. It seems to be a background story. Look at the white king. Where can he go on? Where can he move? Cannot go anywhere, but it's not under check. But what if it was check? We'll check with the one rook. The white rook will take it, and the other rook should be mate. Let's see if this is the answer. Yes, that's mate. We finished 39 puzzles with 2200 being the strongest. We have two mistakes until now, two wrong answers, one wrong answer, and we are out, which means basically we are ending the video. Here, how black can check. The only way to check is if they move the pawn to c4, because this is a discover check. They check with the queen. But what can the white king can, if they go to h1, h2, then the knight moves and discover check from the rook and h8. If it goes to f1, we need to be careful. If white was to move, queen goes to g7 check. Yes, black can put the knight on f7. The rook on h8 is not lost yet, but white will have a strong attack. But for now, I think the only way to start the combination is to move the pawn to c4. Yes. Question is, what do we do with move number 2? Because now there is no obvious check. It's in fact, oh no, there are some checks, but are trivial, meaning queen can go to f2 or g1, but then black loses the queen, so that's not the answer. What if knight went to g4 and threatened with the mate on f2? If white takes the knight, the rook goes to h1 check, and at least we win a rook. But what if the well, while we are waiting, what if the queen went to g7 check, and then king goes to d8 and takes the rook, and it's with a check. And then no matter where the black king goes, it's mate. So rook to g4 does not seem to be the answer. What could it be? Material-wise, both sides have the same material, so it's not a case of exchanging material and being ahead. White is attacking the knight that for the time being is protected by the rook. If the rook goes, for example, to g8 to threaten the white queen, then the queen would take the knight. What would happen if the knight moved and went, for example, to f7? Then black cannot check. If they go to g7, it's not a check because of the knight. And then white is free to send the knight on h1. But what if the white queen went to e2? Because just give them one move time and they can go to e2 and avoid the dangerous check from h1. What if the knight went to f5? You see the candidate moves. If it went to f5, the good thing is that the queen, the white queen cannot go to g7 to check because the knight would take the queen. And if white used the g4 pawn to take it, then rook goes to h1 check. Then they have a very dangerous attack. Let's see if this is the answer. I'm not sure at all if it is, but I can't think of anything better. Nope, it's wrong. So we have 39 correct answers and 3 wrongs. Let's see where did we have the errors. The toughest one we did was 2200. Let's see if there is a solution. You see here that out of everybody that tried it today, only 13.1% got it right. You may remember we tried to put the queen on a8. Let's show the solution now. Exchange queens. Oh yes, and win the rook. That was the answer for that. Let's see the second one. So the idea is exchange queens and then win the rook. There was no mate. Let's see the second one of 2010. You see this one, the pass rate was 39.8%. So more than half of the people did not get it right. Let's see what's the solution. Queen goes to h6. Yes. Yeah, we should allow black to check from h4, nothing dangerous there, but now we are near mate. So that was the answer to the second one. And let's see the third one that we got wrong and threw us out of the game. You see, the first move we got it right, but let's see what's the second. The knight had to go to f7, but what if black had moved their king instead of moving the queen for a more dangerous attack? Okay, that's what we got for now. We may try to do it at some other time. 39 out of 42, with 2200 being the toughest problem we solved. Ladies and gentlemen, if you have some time and if you have a chess.com account, I would encourage you to do so. Ideally, I would say put it endurance until the end, or survival as I call it, because you don't want to have time constraints. You just want to take your time and learn and think for yourselves. I'm Harilos Aniziris. Thanks to the views, to the subscribers, to the likes, to the comments. See you later, whether with another game from the Greco Chess online tournament or anything else. For now, goodbye.